Good evening. The San Dimas City Council and successor agency meeting will come to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Under presentations, we have a proclamation recognizing the Bonita Unified School District Board member Chuck Coyne on the agenda to recognize his upcoming retirement. I, as mayor, on behalf of the city, will make a presentation of this proclamation on Thursday, December 8th, at a board meeting commemorating Coyne's retirement event. Oral communications. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comment will not be taken during each individual agenda item except for public hearing items. Comments on public hearing items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. However, your concerns will be referred to a staff or set for discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, the first speaker will be Margie Green.
Good evening, everyone, and happy holidays. It's so nice to be here. I just want to tell you about the Historical Society, San Dimas Historical Society. We started off last week with a combined Chamber of Commerce and Historical Society open house. Saw a lot of you there, and it was really great. Now we're off and running for the holidays. Starting December 3rd, we will not be having our historic walk around town because the city's got a lot of plans for that day. We've got a parade. We've got just so much going on that day. What we're going to do is just have the Walker House open upstairs, the museum, the gift shop. We'll give tours. We'll let you know all about it. You can come ask us questions about history, see if you can stump us on that. And anyway, we'll have a great day. And we'll be open every Saturday and Sunday in December from the 3rd through the 18th at the Walker House upstairs on the 2nd floor. And that's from 12 noon until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But remember, we're not doing our walking tour of the historical downtown this week. We also will be having a Historical Society dinner. Unfortunately, it is the same night as Chuck Coyne's his retirement dinner, I believe it is. But Historical Society, if you're a member or a non-member, you can join us. We're going to have it over at the Masonic Lodge, and they're going to give us a good talk. Tell us about the history. The history of the Masonic Lodge goes way, way back. Our first mayor, Stanley Plummer, was in the Masons, and I saw a picture in there the other evening. Hardly looked like him. He had a lot of hair, and he was a very young man at the time. So anyway, we have a great dinner. If you want more information on that, call the Historical Society and leave a message. We'll get right back to you as soon as we can. We're only there on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and then starting December 3rd, 4th, and then the following weekend, we'll be there on Saturday and Sunday from noon until 4 o'clock. So please come join us and ask us questions, and we'll tell you all about San Dimas. We're saving the history of the past for the present and the present history for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Sylvia Melendez.
Hi everyone, my name is Sylvia Melendez. I'm the CEO here at the San Dimas Chamber of Commerce, across the street. And we would like to wish everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. The San Dimas Chamber of Commerce would like to remind everybody in the community to please consider shopping locally, shopping small, and also with San Dimas Chamber members. If you shop, drink, dine, or purchase gas in San Dimas, save your receipts, and for every $50 spent, please send pictures of your receipts to info@San Dimas Chamber of Commerce, info@sandimaschamber.com for a chance to win baskets, gift cards, and additional prizes during our annual Shop Local, Shop San Dimas campaign contest. You double your chances when you purchase with San Dimas Chamber members, even outside of the city of San Dimas. Please visit sandimaschamber.com. On the directory, we have a full list of members. Participants can enter a limited amount of times, and you don't have to be a resident to participate. Send entries now until December 13th at info@sandimaschamber.com. We would also like to put 2 mixers on your radar. We have one that's the holiday mixer taking place on Wednesday, November the 30th from 5 to 7:30. We're hosting our annual mixer and paint night. The admission is $20 for dinner and $25 for dinner and a paint kit. This event is open to the community. Our final mixer of the year takes place on Wednesday, December the 7th from 5 to 6:30 at Baby Burr's Pizza and Wings in San Dimas, and there is no admission to attend. For more information on any of the topics that I covered, please visit the San Dimas Chamber website at sandimaschamber.com. Contact the San Dimas Chamber at 909-592-3818 or by email at info@sandimaschamber.com, and I'll have the flyers in the back of the room. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I see Pete sneaking up here.
I'm trying to save time for you.
Well,
Pete Sluis.
Thank you. And first of all, I have just a bunch of stuff on the Metrolink meeting I went to last week ago, Monday. But I noticed that Deborah, I think it is Deborah, put in a table of contents on the agenda package. Did you do that or somebody else? Yeah, I could just jump right to an agenda item and get stuff. I noticed that anyway, and someone did it. Maybe the computer guy did it. It's very nice. I appreciate that. The Metrolink, I have one thing on Metro. The original connector, which was supposed to be at the end of summer, and then it kind of they kept just not announcing a date. Now they have a 2023 date listed with no specific date. That will connect the blue line from Long Beach straight into Azusa, which they're having so many problems in Long Beach right now. I think that might be why they're delaying it. I'm not positive, and just a speculation. I did notice, and I haven't seen anything on the news about this, but the Lancaster station for Metrolink, Supervisor Barger made a comment that she was going to an emergency meeting with the mayor because they were planning on, the city wants to close it down, this Lancaster station for Metrolink. It's kind of stunning, but they're having problems with criminal activity and homeless. I intend to follow up on the Metrolink comment I made. It has to do with the double track, unless I hear from somebody that we were getting our fencing or sound walls or something, but I don't really anticipate that happening. So I'll send out another. I know I sent you guys my comments before. I went to Redlands. I made a comment to Sherry that they had like a plan A, plan B. I thought they were going to do both fencing and quiet zones, but they just did quiet zones, which currently are not there. There is basically no fencing when you go in through Redlands, and they've already had a fatality. They don't do very many trains. They're very much like we were 30 years ago, except for the horns right now are blowing. But you could just cut across. They have you go to an intersection, and they have all the infrastructure there, or the gate and whatnot. But unless you walk straight down the sidewalk, there's an empty lot right next to it, you can take a shortcut and cut right from the train. Which, to me, it's crazy. San Clemente, just for informational purposes, it's already shifted 28 inches. It's been closed down south of San Clemente for the Metrolink tracks. It's going towards the ocean about over 2 feet now in a year. And they're fixing it. They're putting in 100 feet supports. They mentioned bidirectional activity on our tracks from Rancho Cucamonga, the Bright Line to Vegas, the Fairplex. They mentioned that as far as the platform. The next Olympics is going to be a carless Olympics. You're not going to have allowed any cars into the venues. So they're going to have to use public transportation to get there, including our Bonelli Park here is going to have an event. So it's going to be interesting how they're going to do it. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. They're $300 million short on their budget by 2027. Their budget is just exploding negative for Metrolink. It's $120 million currently, so it's a big number that the other counties have to make up for it. And I think I'll just stop there. That's plenty fit in one thing. Thank you.
thank you, Pete.
Next is Nora Chen.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and staff. Happy Thanksgiving, and I would like to express my sincerest appreciation to mayor and city council members and manager and staff for your long-term and continuous support, especially this year. And it's a tough the previous year, and the library had to close for so long, and it posed a lot of the inconvenience to the residents. And I really appreciate your kind of understanding and the support. And with your support, then we can, after the we reopen, we can bounce back and provide the service to the customer again. And as the holiday season approaches, and we see the new COVID kind of cases are rising, so the library that provides free antigen test kits to families who need a self-testing. So it will be free and no question will be asked. And of course, we want to reserve the test kits to family who really need it. So while the supplies last. So we do have enough supplies at this moment. And the previous year, months, we do have the in and out promotion, and we do have about 300 kids that signed up for our in and out promotion, and we gave away about 450 gift card to in and out burgers. And kids, they say they really enjoy the free kind of burgers, especially they earn it very hard by reading. So just want to let you know we continue to provide services for the community, and I wish everyone have a very joyful and healthy holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. I will make note that just today, when I picked up my grandson to bring him home from school, or not from school, but wherever he was at, made the comment that I had an In-N-Out burger yesterday for a pass that I got from the library.
That's
so
right.
There are kids out there utilizing that free hamburger.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, there are no more speaker cards.
Anyone wishing to address the city council at this time who had not filled in a card? Please, sir.
Thank you. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in favor of the gold line. I know that there's a lot of issues and a lot of things that will need to be addressed if it opens, but I hate to see San Dimas become sort of a no man's land between developed areas on metro hubs. So that's it. Me and a lot of other businesses are kind of right on that line, and I think we would benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak to the council at this time? Sir?
Mayor, council, staff, thank you so much for serving our city. I'm just a guy that grew up here in San Dimas. I've been here since 1973. Left, went to New York, came back, and I came back to the city that I love. I have a small business. It's called Most Excellent Juice. It's on San Dimas Avenue, 222 South San Dimas Avenue. That's not a plug. We're just happen to be a few feet away from the platform that's being built. And frankly, I think that we put up with a lot of, you know what I mean, ups and downs, closures, that kind of thing. But we want to be part of the new stage of San Dimas. And we're seeing a lot of new families that come from everywhere from Silver Lake to Los Filos to some really hip families, really beautiful families. One of the great things about owning a small business here in San Dimas is the fact that you get to meet the community. And we have some beautiful people, and it's very, very diverse. And I love them. We just want to be included, like what Charles said. He has the Pacific Brewing place right here on South San Dimas Avenue. Like I said, we have the juice store that's right near the thing. We're not afraid of the homeless. We need to learn how to, it's a reality that we have to deal with. And I believe that Whenever there's a problem, there's always a brilliant solution. I'd like to offer my services to the city on any brainstorming or anything like that for homeless or concerns of that. I worked as a creative director in advertising for years in New York City, but I grew up here. I went to Mount Sac, and so I'm a local boy, you know what I mean? Turned gentleman. But I just want to offer that up to the city. The other thing is we're not afraid of the platform. We're going to embrace it. Public transportation is really important to people who can't afford gas, to people who are having problems right now buying eggs, because eggs have gone up, butter's gone up, you know. People can't afford to buy our juice, and our juice is made organic, and honestly, our juice here in San Dimas is better than any in West LA or anywhere. We have people that come from Calabasas to get our juice. But I just want to offer that up to you guys. We're going to embrace the public transportation because it's inclusive, and we would love to have a dialogue and help come up with some intelligent solutions to making it work. You know what I mean? And to be honest, I just want to thank you guys again for serving our city and stuff, and we love this place. You know? Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless members of the City Council request a separate discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that on items 4 and 7, and that's the letter about the Gold Line and the management over at Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates, be pulled for a brief verbal report.
Let me understand that you just need a verbal report, so we will not take a motion and take the motion at the end.
We could have the reports before the rest of the consent calendar is acted on.
Right, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyone object to that? Nope. All right, staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council. About 2 weeks ago, the Foothill Gold Line Extension Authority asked cities to write letters of support to Metro and our state legislative body as they're applying to Cycle 6 of the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which is administered through the California State Transportation Agency. They're looking to garner approximately just shy of $800 million, which would allow them to continue the line all the way through to Montclair. And so my recommendation to the council is to lend our support for our regional partners, our sister cities to the east of us, in terms of the benefits they would derive from this rail line going further in that direction. And so with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll take any questions.
Questions?
No questions? I support that.
All right, we'll move on to the next item.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and members of the public. My name is Lily Flores. I'm the housing manager. Item number 7, the item before you, is the consideration and approval of an agreement for management services of Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates and Monte Vista Place Senior Apartments with John A. DeFalco Management Company operating as Mobile Modular Development, Inc., and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the appropriate documents, amendments, and modifications necessary to implement the agreement and transition of property management services. So Haven Management Services has been managing both properties since September 14, 2021. During this time, the property managers and the city have been more engaged with the residents and have completed a variety of items at both Charter Oak and Monte Vista. On July 19, 2022, the City and Haven Management Services decided it was in the best interest of all involved to move in a different direction. Haven Management agreed to continue their services through December 31st, 2022, while the city procured a new property manager. So after working with the City Attorney's Office, on September 23rd, 2022, staff released a request for proposals, an RFP, for property management of Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates and Monte Vista Place Senior Apartments, with a due date of October 10th, 2022. The RFP was published on the city's website and was mailed to 16 property management firms. On October 10th, the city received a total of 2 proposals, one from Master Home Inc. and one from John A. DeFalco Management Company, operating as Mobile Modular Development, Inc. The staff reviewed both proposals and evaluated them on the following criteria: quality and completeness, quality of the proposed services to be provided, ability and experience of team members assigned to work on the project, ability, experience, and fit of the firm, its team, and capacity to provide the scope of services, creativity and insight of proposal, and the proposal cost. Based on these criteria, on November 1st, 2022, staff met with the team of Mobile Modular Development, Inc. Staff met with the owner, the office supervisor and tenant relations, the accounting HR manager, the field supervisor, and an on-site property manager. Mobile Modular Development has over 30 years' experience managing mobile home communities. They currently manage 5 mobile home communities, 2 which are seniors at senior parks age 55 and over, and 1 which is located in the city of San Dimas. They also own and manage a 134-unit apartment complex and 11 single-family residential homes. Their staff is trained annually on updated mobile home laws to ensure their properties are in compliance with all aspects of the mobile home residency law and the California civil codes. All their staff are members of the Western Mobile Home Association. They also have trained staff in laws governing the apartment industry. Staff discussed in detail the qualification of the firm and determined that this firm was the best qualified and suited for the city. The agreement before you enhances numerous areas that were not well defined in agreements from previous management agreements. The enhancements include much more detail of how a resident can address concerns, including a dispute resolution option that when a resident does not believe the property management firm or the city has properly performed their obligation, a resident can have such concern heard by the city's independent hearing officer as a final internal process where such decision of the local hearing officer will be final. Additionally, the agreement includes more details on inspection requirements that include annual, monthly, weekly, and daily inspections, ensuring health and safety deficiencies, maintenance, and quality of life issues are identified and addressed. With approval, the term of the agreement will commence on January 1st, 2023, and shall end on December 31st, 2032. A 10-year term with the right of either party to terminate with a 180-day written notice. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council approve the proposed agreement for management services with John A. DeFalco Management Company operating as Mobile Modular Development, Inc., and authorize the city manager or his designee to execute any and all documents necessary, including but not limited to amendments and modifications to implement the agreement and transition of property management services. That concludes staff's presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Additionally, I wanted to note that representatives from Mobile Modular Development are present, and they can answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
I don't have any questions. I just appreciate, Lily, your work and staff's work on getting a new management company.
Yeah, we're excited.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did staff consult with members, residents of the mobile home park?
No, we did not.
You did not. And the term of 10 years, why 10?
Why 10? We wanted to just let them know that we're in for the long haul. This is a partnership that we want to continue, that we hope it'll really work out. They do have the 180-day notice to terminate, and we felt just because we needed that time, if either one of us decided to terminate, that we can go out to RFP and procure another management company.
I think that council's had other contracts in the past that have had terms of 10 years, and I think in recent times we've gone and bifurcated that, I think, into a 5-year term with renewal options. I think that's my preference on this. I think 10 years, as we know with other contracts that the council is currently facing or other arrangements, can become complex, I think, in terms of performance and in management. and in terms of practicality of dispute. So I don't know, my preference would be a shorter term with renewal options, but that's just my preference on that. I also would have preferred that the members of the public were consulted, or the members of the residents were consulted on this, in light of kind of what's transpired with this historically, but I understand where we're at. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I had one question. So you mentioned that you had contacted 16 property management companies, 2 responded. Was that in line with expectations, or was that lower than expected? I just kind of wondered, to me it seemed a little low, and I just wanted to know maybe what was driving the lower response rate, or maybe that's in line with what was expected.
To a couple of the points of the council members, we didn't have an expected number of property management firms to target, nor who would respond. In terms of the response, I believe we had 2 respondents. One very vastly different experience base. One responded with very little to no mobile home park, senior mobile home park experience, and one that you have before you for the selection. And so part of our calculus in that was determining, both based on timeline, one option could have been you could have gone back out and tried to get more to come back and submit. However, the timeline doesn't allow for that. And secondly, we wanted to engage the residents committee to get some input in terms of the selection. We were planning that originally, but when the submittals resulted in just 2, with one very clearly met the criteria and one did not, we made the choice not to put that one before the residents committee. But if we had 2 or 3 good qualified candidates, we would have been engaging the 5 members of the resident committee to provide input and concerns and be engaged during that process. And so if we have to go through this process again and we can garner more qualified submittals, we will be engaging the residents in the selection of their property manager.
I will speak to something that Ryan was talking about, and that's the the length of the contract. I don't know if you can speak a little bit to that as far as I realize that it's an attractive contract the longer it is for the service provider that we're engaging with. But I do think that Ryan has a really good point when it comes to the other contracts that we're experiencing in the city that have some difficulties with their long length and us trying to get the quality of services out of those contracts, and we kind of feel stuck. You know, I don't know if you could speak to why we think this is going to be different at a longer term.
Absolutely. We're very well aware of contracts we're locked into with no out clause, and so when things don't go well, you're stuck in terms of that service. It really is a preference whether you want 5 years with options, 10 years or longer, or even 1 year. But the one critical piece to this that goes to the point of our concern if the services are not what we desire for our residents, and the property manager cannot remediate that performance after proper notification, the 180-day clause is a no-cause trigger for us. So we could have any length of contract. We could go to 5 years with options or stay at 10. We can still terminate and go back out with that 180-day notice. And so the 10 years, the longer one versus the 5 years makes some sense, because our expectations also is the property manager will be looking for and investing in the long-term capital improvement of the park. And so when you give a shorter contract to a vendor, they tend to start to look shorter term in terms of what type of improvements do we want to engage with, what kind of capacity we want to bring to bear to make those improvements. But we could always drive that if we have a shorter contract, if that's our desire. And so it really comes down to your preference if you want to stay with 5 versus 10. For us, either way works, but the reason we picked 10 is because of that capital improvement piece of that.
So it sounds like at any time, even with the 10-year contract, we could give a 180-day notice just because it's just not working out.
Either party, yes.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better.
And Chris, or Lily, I can't remember how long they've been over at San Dimas Royal. A lot of years, I know.
Several years, yeah.
And I think Chris made the point that I was thinking about, is that given the longer term, and then I believe they will look at longer term improvements. And they mentioned like the asphalt replacement, which is a big, gigantic deal, which may need to be done and be evaluated and everything. But with the 180-day out clause, I think we're safe and protected.
The benefit with a shorter contract and options, if you define the options as not unilateral to the vendor, it offers you the opportunity to renegotiate. And so if there's provisions of the agreement that are concerning or not what you would want, or the compensation structure is something you want to change, an out clause which gives us the ability to decide to not renew, puts you in a position to be able to negotiate. But based on the terms that we have here and the out clause, it doesn't necessarily provide us a whole lot of benefit. And the other concern that we have, given that we had only one real qualified senior mobile home park submittal, there also is a risk that if you transition sooner, you may run into not having qualified property managers to take over the park, which is not an option we want to be faced with. But again, we'll leave it to the council if you desire a shorter term on the contract.
My personal preference would be a 5-year contract with, at 5 years, to conduct a review of the performance of the contract with an option to renew for an additional 5. I just think that in looking at all of our contracts that we've had thus far, I can think of at least 2 now where we've gone from a 10-year term to looking at renewal options because of performance. And I can also think of current contracts that we remediate, and we just keep going down this path when you get an adversarial relationship with a vendor or a contractor. And I hope that does not happen here. But being very honest, this is a unique contract for a unique property in the city. And I am concerned that the council may engage in a long-term contract, and there wasn't public engagement on this, at least in the review process and what have you. And I understand what the reasons were, but I fear that if I was a resident living in that mobile home park, and tonight the city council passes a 10-year agreement with someone that I never even had the option to talk to or even hear about, I feel stuck with that. I feel saddled with it. And not that 5 years alleviates that any differently, but that's a decade of my life that I'm going to be sitting there hoping and praying that this works out for the best. So that would be my preference, and ask to the council is to consider that. I understand if there's not an appetite for it, but I just think for the people that live there, if I was one of them, I would want to know that there was some thought given into it, and there is going to be at some point a performance review or a point of demarcation that the city is going to assess what they've done with this relationship. And if it's doing great, so be it. We continue, we move forward. I don't think capital improvements are not going to not happen. We are going to plan for them. We're going to budget for them. They will happen. I do think I understand the point related to staff and the investment from the contractor. And I think if everything's going well, we'll know that. And I don't think there's any reason to fret. I'd be more concerned if there was a feeling that they needed to worry about it. But that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Lily, could you just remind, this is really not a public hearing, but I think it was brought up that the management company is represented here by Mrs. DeFalco and Lori Jill. Would you like, one of you like to address Councilman Vienna's concern? Yes. Okay, you need to, you come up here, please.
My first time addressing the council. Hello, everybody. I understand your concerns. We have been the management team for San Dimas Royal for somewhere between 25 and 30 years. So we do have a track record of history of managing property, and we're looking forward to this relationship. We're looking forward to bringing some community goodwill to this community. I've met a few residents in the past, and I think that you will all be pleasantly surprised at what we have to offer. And we would entertain you to look at this in 5 years and see what we're doing. And I'm certain at that point you would not hesitate to extend that. Okay, thank you.
All right, Lily. Anybody got else, any further questions for Lily?
I have one. You had mentioned, Mr. Constantine, that you'd spoken potentially about capital improvements with the vendor. Can you go into more specifics about that, or was it just more of a general discussion, since that was a point that you had raised?
They're going to be required to submit 10 and 20-year capital improvement program, do an assessment of what's on site. Had the opportunity to sit down with Mr. DeFalco himself and talk about what our concerns are about the park, that capital improvements have been neglected for the last decade. And I don't mean minor capital improvements. I'm referring to very significant capital, understanding what do our undergrounds look like, electrical, sewer, when do they need to be replaced, how much is that going to cost, when do we incur that cost to ensure that we have the money set aside, and to be invested and focused like we are on our capital assets account that we have in the city, telegraphing that and being ready for it. On the shorter term, they will be submitting operating budgets that do have capital related expenditures to them. They're just not the large scale, resurfacing the pool or the covers. That's a very long type capital improvement program, and not smaller ones like maybe an HVAC replacement that they may have on the clubhouse.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
As for my part, 10 years sounds like a long time, and as we all know, I've been dealing almost daily with other contracts that we have in the city, and we don't see an end result out there. In this particular case, I think differently. Okay? I think we're okay. Look around. In this particular case, I've been around here for a lot of years, 17 on the council, many years prior to that. I also know that John's been around on the council for a lot of years. John DeFalco and his organization are not strangers to this community. In fact, John DeFalco was one of the originators of the Mobile Home Accord. And so he's very, very much in tune with what's going on. I'm very impressed with what I've seen. Lori Jo runs the mobile home park of San Dimas Royale. They've also had Mobile Land. They come with a track record. And I might add that when I haven't spoken to any of the residents there concerning this negotiations because I didn't think it was the most appropriate. But as 3 or 4 of them who are in the audience said to me on the way up the steps today, the ramp rather, is that they thought the city was doing a good job at making a selection. And I wasn't aware that they knew, but I also know that everybody knows everything in this city. It's a small city, and to that accord, and having the 180-day get out of Dodge pass on it, I can support this, and I'm hoping that there'll be a long-term relationship, and I believe that the community itself will recognize that the city is looking out for their best interests in hiring the best person qualified, and the people that applied, like 16 or 17 companies were put out there, and only 2. And I believe we were fortunate that the 2 was one that had history here in San Dimas. So I will be supporting it, and but I do recognize and understand exactly what Ryan is saying, because we do have a couple of contracts that are we don't have that get out of jail free card. with, and I see that being a win.
Mr. Mayor, I'll ask for a separate vote on this particular matter then, outside of the consent calendar.
Okay?
So I'll make a motion to approve the agreement for management services of Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates and Monte Vista Senior Apartments with the DeFalco Management Company.
Second.
I'm sorry, wait, restate the motion?
I'm moving to approve as stated in the packet and as stated here on the agenda, the agreement for management services of Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates and the Monte Vista Senior Apartments, because that's included.
All right, I would move a substitute motion to approve the consent calendar, all items except for item number 7 to be taken separately.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we'll now take item 7 on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
I'll move
Mr. Mayor,
that
I'll move approval of item number 7 as proposed with an amendment to the term of 5 years to have a review process conducted, and if everything is all good, an option for the city to renew the contract for another term of 5 years.
I can make a substitute motion, but I won't.
Well, I'm okay with the contract the way it is, especially with the 18-month bailout. I will second that motion because I'm okay with that as well.
I think it's important to note before the vote that the contractor has no issue with the terms of that and was welcoming to it. And I think accountability in contracts is something that the city has strived to continue to have, and I think it's a move in the right direction.
Well, I do understand, and I did hear the management company said they had no problem with 5 years. So I'm going to go with 5 years. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay. Motion passes 3-2. Do us a good job. Please tell John that we're counting on you guys. In fact, I know there are people in this audience that are counting on you. Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, for the record, Councilmember Ebner and Nakano were the no votes.
Okay. We have a management company. Thank you. Okay, public hearing, consideration and approval to amend Title 15 of the San Dimas Municipal Code, Buildings and Construction, by adopting and reference the latest edition of California Model Codes and to model codes to regulate and the construction, alteration, and the occupancy of buildings and structures within the city of San Dimas. This is the second reading.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Every 3 years, the California Building Standard Commission updates the Building Standards Code. These updates reflect recent changes of state laws that have been passed since the previous adoption. The California Building Standard Law allows the governing bodies of local jurisdictions to adopt building standards as written, or they may make amendments to the Building Standards Code with finding due to local climatic, geological, or topographical conditions unique to that jurisdiction. The Ordinance 1295 incorporates administrative amendments that are consistent with current San Dimas policies and are almost identical to the previous 3 code cycles. The ordinance, as proposed, only addresses regulations and not fee schedules. As such, the proposed ordinance has no physical impact. City staff recommends that City Council hold the public hearing to receive public comment on Ordinance 1295, and upon the completion of the public hearing, adopt Ordinance 1295.
Thank you.
And Mayor, there is one typo that we would ask that the council make if you move to approve this tonight, that you move it as amended to correct on page 232 of your packet in section 15.50.010. The appendices numbers are incorrect. It says I, J, and V. That should instead say AH, AJ, and AX.
Would you repeat that, please? AH?
AH, AJ, and AX.
Thank you. Okay, any further questions? Any questions of staff? Okay, at this point, we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this matter? I see the head honcho of the fire department showing up.
Not the head honcho. Mike Inman, Assistant Fire Chief. We just asked, I know that a lot of the cities are going ahead and adopting the municipal codes for their particular cities. The only thing we ask is that you leave it open to amend it for the 2023 LA County Fire Code that is in review. As stated earlier, that every 3 years the building and the fire code comes out, and it takes us about a year to look at that and see if things need to be any more stringent. So what we ask is that you just keep that open to amend it to still address Title 32 in the LA County Fire Code.
Okay. How do we make that happen, Jeff?
So I spoke to the building official, Eric Bilsting, about this. The reason the request was to add language to implement the code that was coming forth that's currently in review. However, historically, the timeline associated with that was longer than staff had desired it to be. And so the recommendation is, as stated here, to approve this. It does not forestall the city council and staff taking another action once those codes are updated, which I think is around the April timeframe, to come back and amend and adopt the most recent codes. We're not, staff's not opposed to doing that.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak to this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. You have a motion to adopt ordinance 1295.
I would move approval with the understanding that we direct staff to bring this back once those codes are published.
And with the amendments.
You're right, and with the amended language.
I'll second.
Okay. We're going to need to read ordinance 1295.
Ordinance 1295, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Dimas, California, amending specified chapters of Title 15 of the San Dimas Municipal Code and adopting by reference the 2022 edition of the California Building Code, Volumes 1 and 2, the 2022 edition of the California Residential Code, the 2022 edition of the California Plumbing Code, the 2022 edition of the California Electrical Code, the 2022 edition of the Mechanical Code, the 2022 California Fire Code, and the 2022 California edition of the California Green Building Standards Code, and the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code, together with certain amendments, additions, deletions, and exceptions, including fees and penalties.
Waive further reading and adopt ordinance 1295.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving into public hearing number 2 for discussion, consideration, and approval of the proposed solid waste rate adjustment and adoption of Resolution 2022-59. Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Lauren Marshall, Senior Administrative Analyst for the Public Works Department, and I will make our overview of SB 1383 brief because I know you have heard it a couple of times now. Oh, can I get the clicker? Just to give a quick recap, as I said, the reason for SB 1383 is we are trying to, well, the state of California is trying to combat and mitigate climate change as we know it by mitigating specifically methane gas, which is the major, most It's basically from the food decomposing in landfills or any sort of organics in landfills. So that's the origination of the law itself. It also hopes to create organics collection programs, mitigate food insecure folks, and hopefully make sure that they have that food available to them. And then as well as creating jobs and various types of renewable fuels. There are quite a few requirements of jurisdictions, counties and cities statewide. As stated, we are required to provide the organics collection services to all residents and businesses. We had to establish an edible food recovery program. We continue to educate and conduct that outreach to the community on what's required of them and when. We need to work on procuring recyclable and recovered organic products. That's my biggest challenge right now. And then we want to secure access to the recycling and edible food recovery that we're getting from our Tier 1 and Tier 2 generators, so our grocery stores and restaurants. And then, of course, there are the extensive monitoring and enforcement mechanisms that this law requires of cities. So the rate increase reflects the additional state-mandated implementation of the citywide organics program tonight, and I will dive straight into that. For this year, the rate for residential and solid waste services has been calculated with an additional component related to SB 1383, which I will get to in a moment. But first, the one you're most familiar with is this table right here. It says, per the agreement, this first part of the rate applied to residential and commercial bin service adjustments is based on 1, the CPI or the Consumer Price Index, and 2, the disposal component based on landfill and disposal costs. So the CPI information, as we do every year, was obtained from the United States Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics. The disposal component is based upon the actual increase in disposal costs for each of the disposal or transfer facilities used, and it's weighted based upon a percentage of waste disposed at each landfill facility monthly. The requested rate increase for the residential and commercial bin services this year is 7.13%. That's shown in the table above in the red box. However, for this service component, the franchise agreement states that this weighted rate cannot exceed 5%. So this year, the weighted percentage, you can see from the table, was 5.14%. Therefore, the overage of 0.14% can actually be carried over as part of the rate increase for 2024. So more on that probably around this time next year. Then we go to what I mentioned before, and that is the residential curbside collection SB 1383 fee. So I'll get to that actually in just a moment. What I wanted to point out to the council is that we are looking, what is those percentages increase mean? So for the standard 64-gallon rate increase, we're going from $32.78 to $36.50. That's what most residents in the city have that have single can or cart service. I also want to do another plug for any residents that are 65 and older. Please, please, please sign up for the senior curbside collection services. So you do see they're still going up. They're going up, $278 to $325 per month, depending on the cart service that they have. But we will help as much as we can with getting them all signed up so that they can save as much money as possible. There are many more options, just really quick, for our commercial services in terms of bin sizes, collection times per week. But as the standard example, a 3-yard bin collected once per week, the monthly bill will increase from $196.72 to $210.75 in 2023. All of these rates are detailed in the agenda report attachments, including the public notice that was sent to all ratepayers and property owners citywide. It was about 17,000 mailers. The proposed rates apply only to
the proposed rates apply to all properties, residential, multifamily, and commercial in the city, and include that CPI adjustment and disposal component cost increase due to factors such as the mandatory organics implementation, gate fees, and transportation. For the 1383 fee, the $1.38 that you see outlined above, this particular fee relates only to residential services because these services have already been implemented for the commercial services. So what does that mean? And I think I touched on this last time. So beginning in 2024, we will be required to inspect and enforce on residential and commercial. Commercial is already being enforced on due to AB 1826. The compliance and monitoring mechanisms are very specific. They do require that each residential route will be surveyed at least once a year. And we've gone to, that's the absolute minimum that the law dictates. So we tried to keep the rate low based on that criteria. So what we're seeing here is, as of 2024, we're going to either have to go out and flip cans, or we're going to do what Waste Management is proposing, and it's called Smart Truck Technology. Smart Truck Technology is basically where they geolocate where the can is. They take a picture of what's going into the truck itself as it's being emptied, and if there is any contamination reviewed by a Waste Management staff member, that person is required to receive targeted outreach that is meant to note the violation and then prove the violation and then teach the person how to avoid that violation from occurring again. So that's what Smart Truck Technology is meant to do. So there are a couple of additional fees related to the proposed 2023 residential rates. Green cans, they are going to go to each townhome and condo with single cart service, but we are going to try to get them as much notice as possible so that this is the least disruptive as possible for those residents, because they're about to inherit a third cart when they've been used to 2 carts from this point on. They will get a 60-day notice. The entire city will get a 60-day notice, actually, before any sort of enforcement is taken, and they're also going to get 2 notices. So they'll get 2 free get out of jail free cards before this is implemented. Additionally, the residential contamination fee will be about $20, or will be $20 for residential contaminations after that second notice and that 60-day grace period. And remember, these have been in place since January 1st of this year. So folks have been getting this information for a while now, and we're going to give them a little bit more on top of that. For commercial and multifamily split carts, this means take a 3-yard bin, divide it in half, and they'll be able to choose if they have like a space constraint where they can't fit 3 carts. What they'll be able to do is have a trash recycling cart or an organics recycling cart, and it'll allow them to potentially save money as well as space. So that's what that comes down to. The Prop 218 process. So as council will recall, on September 27th, we did set the public hearing. And then from there, the public notice was mailed out to the public the first week in October, which was the 45-day required notice prior to the public hearing. It outlined what the public could do to protest that rate increase, and also let them know that we needed to have 50% of all property owners protest +1 in order for the rate increase to not occur. So we're here tonight with the vote of the City Council to adopt that rate adjustment. And should council approve, we would go to an effective rate increase as outlined in the public notice sent to everyone the first week of October on January 1st, 2023, which would be effective through December 31st, 2023. So with that, staff is recommending tonight that the City Council open the public hearing as required by Proposition 218, take public testimony, accept any additional written protests, close the public hearing, and Mayor Bedard could ask our city clerk to provide a count of all written protests received, and provided there is no majority protest or that 50% plus one of all parcels or properties against the proposed rate adjustment, consider all evidence and testimony presented and adopt resolution number 2022-59, adopting solid waste rates to be effective January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. And that concludes my report. I did want to let you know that Terry Muse, our representative from Waste Management, is here to answer any questions you may have as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions of Lauren?
I had one question. So regarding the monitoring of contamination, the proposal was one that Waste Management had proposed. What are other vendors doing? Are they implementing similar technologies, or do they have different paths to monitor contamination?
Yes. So
what other options there are?
It's a great question. So yes, there are similar technologies out there that other agencies are implementing or other haulers are implementing. But then there's also the good old-fashioned walk around and flip lids. So it's a random sampling of each route that's required, so you don't have to flip every lid, you don't have to monitor every single route, but it is much easier to just review footage on a truck that's already going out there. So that's why the smart truck technology is encouraged, and just from its ease of use.
The footage, is it destroyed afterwards? I guess having people's contents of the trash on video footage recorded and then stored potentially, to me, raises some privacy concerns.
I don't believe it's stored beyond just sharing with a ratepayer what is found, if they've found to be contaminating their trash.
Is there a way we could confirm that?
Terry, do you know what happens to the video footage once it's...
There is a short period of time that it is kept on file, just to allow the customer a chance to, if they are saying this is not their card, or this is not, no, they're, I'll say protesting it, but they're actually questioning whether or not it is indeed correct. After that, it's destroyed.
So is there a GPS sighting for each home that we do now? So the trash can get picked up or garbage can be picked up at 11, 12 o'clock at night, because it's got to take some kind of time to do all of this stuff.
Definitely not.
That's outside the municipal code allowed hours.
Question in regards to, sorry to take this down the SB 1383 route. This isn't what this is necessarily all about, but I think Eric brought up an interesting question. So being that trash cans are inherently open to the public and anybody walking by, I see it frequently happening, people throwing stuff in garbage bags as they're taking their dog for a walk or whatever. Neighbors have an extra bit of trash and they're spreading it around different carts that are nearby so that they can make it fit into their cans. How does that work as far as the enforcement goes? Because there is, in the line of work that I'm in, it's the burden of proof is on the government to really show that, yes, you were the one that did that. And I just don't know that any enforcement model really can capture that.
How they usually do that.
Regardless of it's flip lids or smart truck, that is something that has been brought up several times. It is, though, still required by the state of California to perform these monitoring and enforcement activities. So, unfortunately, that's how it works.
We've had this issue with some of the commercial businesses in town, and what they've had to resort to is Waste Management offers a service where you can lock the bin if necessary. For residential, we haven't gotten that far down the road, and at this point, the state hasn't really listened to concerns from cities and other jurisdictions. I think that it's going to have to demonstrate a pattern before they can change their mindset.
So is Waste Management the one who is, so Waste Management personnel review the footage, and Waste Management sends out a notice correct? It's not going to the state. And then there could be a resident who says, hey, that giant concrete brick wasn't really something I put in my trash. Is waste management, I mean, are they going to be like reasonable, like take their word for it that they didn't do it or something like that?
Well, again, they get 2 notices before any sort of enforcement would have to take place, or any sort of $20 fee would be assessed.
Okay.
So we're hopeful that even if there's some unusual anomaly, that it's
Over the next 2 times?
unusual anomaly.
It's not going to
yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
And is it like 3 strikes in 1 year, or 3 strikes forever, or what is that?
3 strikes per year.
Per year.
Per year, okay, thanks.
So then we don't pick up the trash for the rest of the year? Is that what we're saying?
Then the neighbor will get all that stuff, right?
We've converted
Thanks.
ourselves to New York City. All right, any further questions? Well, I can tell you, there's a lot of questions out there about what's going on, okay? But I think the most used question is, you guys really expect me to put my dinner waste and garbage into a green waste and just slam it in there, and when the heat comes, now I got problems with bugs and all kinds of stuff, okay? Can we have some more material on tell you how you should wrap that, waste it? Because one person says, no, they told me not to put newspaper in, wrap it in newspaper, and another one says, don't use brown bags because they're not biodegradable. Long story short, a majority of the community is rather confused about what's going on and wanting to know what planet some of the people that are making these decisions dropped in from.
Planet Sacramento.
Yes. So we have already created flyers on how to mitigate the smell from your trash can. It's on our website. It's also distributed inside the countertop pails that we distribute for free if you come into City Hall. We have some grant funding that will also allow us to purchase some additional bins should we run out of those. And we've worked really closely together with Waste Management. They've been really great about putting together a 5-city group. So Arcadia, Diamond Bar, Laverne, Baldwin Park, and us are all in a 5-city group, and we basically trade, how are you resolving this issue? What are you doing over here? And really trying to work together to figure out Sacramento. So.
Thank you. Are you talking about when you said you had, there are bins available, are you talking about that little 1-gallon bin that you could fill up in a minute, and then what do you do with it after that?
Yes. So I see lots of Amazon trucks visit the city on a daily basis, and if you save those cardboard boxes with the cardboard tape on them, they make an excellent liner for your can. If you put your green waste in the bottom from your yard, at the bottom first, that adds an extra layer of protection that will absorb anything that leaks out of there. I also encourage everybody to use their garbage disposal for anything that's liquid or soft, and that will also help mitigate the smells in your can.
Super. Thank you. I think that's very valuable information just in the last 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, just a moment. I'm going to open the public hearing in just a minute, please. All right. Any further questions of staff? Okay, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this matter, feel free to come up to the mic.
Okay, Council, I've been involved with converting from regular trash to recycling since 2012. My park in Orange County, then I came here to San Dimas, so I'm familiar with the recycling, and then moving over to the green waste. I've been instrumental working with Lauren. I'm actually excited about doing this, I have to say, because we're all going to go down this path. We're not going to know how it's going to work until we try it. We have ideas about layering the trash with newspaper and green waste, and I really think it's going to mitigate the smell. We currently have 9 bins in our park. 6 of them are trash bins and 3 of them are recycle bins. It took me 2 years to convince my seniors that this is the way they needed to go, so now we're up to 2 pickups a week on our recycle bins in the 3 bins. So it's a long process. People are not so eager to do things that involve change. Garbage disposals are important for things that we need to do to take care of that. 83 homes in my park out of my 111 have garbage disposals, but you have to educate people on how to use them too. It's not flip the switch, run a little water down it. You have to go through an entire process. So there's a whole gambit of things that go along with this. That education is going to go a long way. A flyer is great, but Lauren and I both agree we need to bring people together and have conversation. I started out bringing a trash can in and explaining to them that 60% of that trash can is recyclable, and start plucking stuff out of that to explain to them, I don't want your bottles and cans that you get money for. I want the rest of your trash. And that's how you start. It's an open conversation. When I was in a family park, you let the kids be the ambassadors in their house. You let them explain to their parents, and then you see kids, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds at the trash can talking about recycling. Oh, this is recyclable. Did you know this was recyclable? So it's new. It's not that new because I've been doing it since 2012. I am excited for the organic transition, and I think that that it's just something that is coming. Like she was explaining, the methane gas is important, and you talked about your grandson eating that burger, and if we want this place to be good for them, we have to think about what we're doing now. And it's important. So,
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay?
Thank you. Yep. Anyone else? Ruth?
Good evening, Council and Mayor Ruth Luband. For 2 different points, you can buy, if you are so inclined, your own kitchen top recycling bin. I do have my own, and actually they come with a carbon filter. So if you are concerned about the smell, the carbon filter does take away from that. We do have one in my own home, and we have to take that out on a nightly basis given the size of my family. But that does take me to my second point. So given the size of my family, I do fill my green trash can almost every week. So between yard waste and food waste, because I cook, it's almost completely full. So I would be the anomaly that would actually probably get fined, and it's $20 according to page 241 of the packet for SB 1328 per occurrence after occurrence number 2. So Christmas, parties, birthdays, because we shop at Costco every single week. So I'm not concerned about the green waste. Actually, I consider, using composting and doing this to be incredibly environmentally sound and something that we should do. What concerns me more than that is that I already pay for 2 separate trash cans to begin with. So if you were to take a snapshot of my alley, you would find I have several trash cans, which, by the way, I do pay for. But if I overfill my can, now I'm going to get fined $20 per occurrence. And I guarantee you on December 26th, that's going to happen. And I guarantee you after every single shopping trip at Costco, that is going to happen because there is no way to do that. I'm not going to fill my neighbor's trash. So I'm just wondering, how is that? How can we deal with that? What is the solution to my problem? Because I cannot be the only person who has that particular problem. And probably after Thanksgiving, I hang my head in shame. I may have a food waste problem too, God forbid, but I just might. So, with these things looming in the air, it's the fining that I am very concerned about, because it is the smart technology that's going to take care of that. And like I said, it's $20 per occurrence after warning too. So thank you so much, Council.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. So I'm relatively in favor of the law. I've been around permaculture circles for a long time, so I think there's a definite need for composting and what have you. The only thing that's a little bit extra is the monitorization of the bins and what have you. Of course, Sacramento and their due diligence in trying to mitigate a problem also bring another problem into the mix, but other than that, I am supportive of it. But again, we do have a data privacy law, but I don't think it would be in the realm of the government. It's more private, unfortunately. But yeah, the tracking of this food and the bins is a little bit extra. I'm not in favor of that portion of it.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council about concerning this matter? I'll bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk?
Oh, sorry?
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask staff I think Ruth brings up a really good point. Is it possible to do fee waivers during times where we anticipate high waste? I mean, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and how do you even deal with birthdays and quinceañeras? And I mean, there's so many events that's a very valid point.
Yes, I agree with what Mrs. Louvin said. I think that the city will probably do their best to be normal about how we do enforcement, and perhaps we're not doing audits the week after Thanksgiving or the week after Christmas.
Those fines are coming from the city or from Waste Management?
Waste Management. The city is allowed, per the ordinance that was adopted last December, to assess additional fines, but I think that those would probably be in very extreme circumstances.
But it would be Waste Management's prerogative to waive fees during holidays and such?
It would.
What's Waste Management's take on that? Sorry, Terry.
One of the things I want to clarify, this is regarding contamination, not overages. So we're talking about if you're putting trash that's not organic waste into your green waste bin. So I think it's a little different than what I understand you're talking about. But in terms of, the staff can say, do not monitor our city, these 2 weeks after the holidays or whatever. That's perfectly fine with us.
Okay, all right, so there's some reasonableness then to...
Definitely. I mean, believe me, we don't want to do this either because it makes us the bad guy. People get very upset about it. And the thing about it, though, is the whole state of California is dealing with this. So people have been mad at every government entity. So I think that, but we are trying to be as reasonable as possible, educate as much as possible. I love what Lori Jo was saying about it takes time. It is a process. It definitely is. And, at some point we are going to get there. Like we have made huge strides in recycling, but, it's a process. It's a process.
I don't think I'm sorry, one last question. I don't think the law itself doesn't allow us to exempt the holidays, right? I mean, the law itself basically says we're going to do this, but we're saying in the spirit of the law, we're trying to do everything we can, understanding that residents during certain times of year may have a little bit more waste, and we'll deal with it through education, I imagine, or something.
We absolutely will. And again, the law stipulates each residential route has to be audited once a year.
Oh, okay.
So we're talking food waste and organic waste and food waste. We're not talking, my wife uses an excessive amount of Christmas wrapping and puts into the recycle bin.
Not the foil ones.
What?
Not the foil wrapping paper.
Not the foil one,
No.
right. Yeah, believe me, I got a whole list of something. I can tell you, don't throw 2 fries left in the trash.
Is there any way to make sure that the mayor's house is always the one audited?
We'll make a note.
I think Terry will tell you, that's the one you should audit, because this lady, everything is strictly done by the law. So that, if we could pick one house, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, if there was to be awards given out, it would go to Pam for being a super recycler, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Thank
that's a
you.
reward. But I had
All
a
right.
question about
Go
just
ahead,
the
Tom.
clarity on the overfilling. So I think that might been one of the things that was talked about. So say you have 2 recycling bins, which you can have for free, and they just get filled up because there's Amazon boxes, Christmas, whatever. What's the rule there? And is there a fine for making it too full?
One thing also, if you have excess trash, it can always be a bulk item pickup.
Right.
If you have several bags of trash or extra, call them for bulk item pickup.
And
That's always available.
don't we get 6 of those a year?
Right. And most people never use them all. Okay.
But on the issue of having too much recycling in your recycling bins, is that something
I've
that can
hardly ever
happen?
seen a problem. Usually people aren't breaking down their boxes. That's usually when you see the lids are way up because boxes aren't broken. I mean, I'm a big family myself too, and we're Costco, and I know when they don't break down those boxes, I'm always on my kids. There the lid is, I'm sticking that, but I know that's what's the problem.
But is there a fine involved at all with overfilling?
There could be. I mean, there is a provision in the contract and on the rate sheet for that, but we haven't. It's been there forever.
That's not something you're monitoring with the cameras and
no.
everything? Okay. It's contamination you're monitoring with the
That's
cameras.
what's required by the law, yeah.
Got it. Mhm. Thank you.
So if the minimum is audit one time, and let's just say that we intend to do that, it sounds to me like nobody would ever reach the point at which they would get 2 warnings plus an actual fee, right?
Well, the thing about doing it once a year, there's never going to be really any education going on. We need to monitor it more than once to know what's happening. Because what the smart truck can do too is it can give a report of a neighborhood to say, okay, this neighborhood, not pointing out residents in particular, but this particular neighborhood is not, they're not putting in organics. They're contaminating consistently. And then there could be targeted education at that particular community on, what is the proper way of doing the recycling. So, So
just monitoring contamination only, not necessarily overflow or anything else.
Right.
What happens to a can that's contaminated? Does that entire can have to go into the trash, or like what does it ruin an entire batch of organics? Okay, so
It can.
basically,
Yes. And that's why we really, the education is so important, because, you all could be doing a great job of, sorting and doing them properly, and some other people may not, and that ruins all the good work that you've done has now done too, because now everything's contaminated. So that's why the state sees it's so important to really educate, monitor, and enforce. Unfortunately, for some people, enforcement's the only way for them to listen. To do something about it. That's just a fact
And the
of
city
life.
is the one that sets the number of times that a neighborhood would be audited or the city would be audited?
No.
It's the state.
Oh, it's a state. So even though there's a minimum of 1, the number is actually higher?
Correct. Well, it could be. So again, like Terry's saying, if they notice like a truck is coming back consistently, completely contaminated, they'll target that route that truck just came off of. And the reason why we would do that is during our site visits with Cal Recycle, they could start to look at our reports that we're required to keep on file. And that's when they could put us on a performance improvement plan.
I see.
Yes. So that's, Terry's right, we're going to continuously do outreach and education. I actually spoke with Ruth today about coming to the high school and talking to the environmental club and seeing what we can start to disseminate at the school levels, because I think that's probably the best peer pressure a parent can get is your child shaming you, so.
And just so you know, some of the elementary schools that Bonita Unified, most of them at this point have organics programs. So kids are learning we figure the younger ones are more influential, having them help go home and shame their parents. So they're already starting to do it now.
I think that's a good idea. I think we all have youngsters that either at home or living with their parents or grandchildren and stuff. And when you talk about something like earthquake preparedness, who's more in tune to it than those kids, because the teachers are telling them about it, and they are the best conveyors of that. Grandpa, you shouldn't do that, or this or that. So I think you're on the right track, and I'm glad to hear, because youngsters are the future, and we all know that. So, but thank you. Any additional questions of Lauren or Terry? Okay, hearing none, I'll open up the public hearing. And Laura Jo, that would be your turn.
Mayor, the public hearing is over. So at this time, it's time for the city clerk to announce the vote of written protests that the city has received.
The public hearing is over. The only people we had was staff.
No, I think we opened and received
that's right. I'm
testimony
sorry.
and then closed the
That's
public
right.
hearing.
Okay, Lori, forget it. Okay. Do we have any additional written protests to be filed? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Okay. City Clerk, could you provide us with a count of all written protests filed?
Mayor, the total number of qualified properties or votes as of November 22nd, 2022 is 11,025. The total number of protest votes needed at 50 plus 1 would be 5,514. The total number of protest votes received by the city clerk's office was 10. This constitutes a percentage of 0.18. This total number of protested votes are insufficient to constitute a majority.
Thank you. Do I have a motion and a second for resolution 2022-59?
I'll move that we approve Resolution 2022-59, which would approve Waste Management's request to adjust the solid waste collection rates for 2023.
I'll second it.
And then we need to read by title.
Resolution 2022-59, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Dimas, California, County of Los Angeles, approving Waste Management's request to adjust San Dimas's solid waste collection rates for 2023.
I'll waive further reading and adopt Resolution 2022-59.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries 5-0. Okay, we'll move on to other business. Consideration and discussion regarding directing and the City Public Safety and/or Planning Commission to evaluate possible changes in the San Dimas Municipal Code, Chapter 10.24, related to the overnight parking permit program. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the November 8th meeting, the City Council directed staff to agendize the discussion of potential making this referral to one or both of the commissions, both public safety and planning. So right now, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Nakano, who was the council member who proposed this, as this is an item for discussion of the council. And we'll take direction on what further action you desire.
Yes, this proposal came out of discussions that we had had, or I had had, and others with residents who had expressed concerns that the overnight parking permitting may need to be updated. They had some ideas for how to do that. I believe the best venue to have those discussions and dive deep into a review would be either the Public Safety Commission or another commission that may have jurisdiction. As I understand from the mayor, the Public Safety Commission is probably the best venue for that. So I would direct staff to bring this topic to the Public Safety Commission for further discussion, review, and any recommendations that they have for updating the overnight parking permitting policy of the city and then have a readout sometime in the new year. Based upon that, we can then have a discussion as to whether or not we agree with those recommendations, make any changes if necessary, or keep the policy the same. So that would be my proposal at hand.
So is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I agree with it. That's all.
Well, I agree.
Oh, let me turn my mic off.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. It'll be sent off to the Public Safety Commission to evaluate any possible changes. I'll wait till it gets to that commission before I make any type of comment on what I'd like to see concerning the holidays. So, okay, we'll go to consider.
One comment on that as well.
Sure.
If we can have that discussion with the Public Safety Commission in the new year, that way we can let residents who have expressed an interest in it enough time without worrying whether or not they'd be in town for the holidays. I don't actually remember what the calendar is. Is they meeting in the new year, or is it a meeting
It
prior?
looks like it should be January 17th.
Okay, perfect. Then that's fine. Great. Thank you.
Any further? Okay, consideration and discussion of directing city staff to engage in a professional service and identification of and identify the source of funding to perform a community survey of resident satisfaction and city priorities. Chris?
I think you basically said the whole report right from what you mentioned.
I just wrote I read what was written.
So what we have before you is we provided an example. It was referenced in terms of the discussion from the city of Glendora, who has been performing the study since 2011 in 2-year and 4-year intervals. We also were able to get I talked to the city manager about a cost estimate of what that type of survey would cost. He indicated approximately $25,000 to $30,000, and very quickly we were able to identify it's $28,500 is the quote we received. The funding source, because that was also requested to be brought forth, we had budgeted money from the American Recovery Act to conduct surveys using HDL consultants who are brought on board by contract, approved by the council, to assist us through the process of how do we allocate and spend the American Recovery Act funding. But figuring that that the regulations were going to change, which they actually did, the federal government opened up the restrictions to effectively make the funding, the first $10 million of that funding, unrestricted, in which case a comprehensive survey wasn't needed at that time. It was something that we thought at some point in the future we needed to do. So I think the discussion definitely is apropos, especially since the council had approved proceeding with discussions on a strategic planning consultant, having data and information not just on satisfaction of services, but as well as what priorities are in the public. Especially when it's statistically gathered, which is not what we typically do, is extremely valuable and something that staff would definitely support. So with that, I'll turn it back to the council and Councilmember Weber.
I appreciate you guys looking into this, especially on such short notice. I know we just brought this up, I think, last meeting, so it's appreciated. I am familiar with the True North survey and the work that they put together, and it really is a super comprehensive survey that I think would be really valuable as we go into our strategic planning process. One question that I didn't know, and perhaps you may be able to answer, is what the timeline looks like for True North to be able to get this survey out and then put all the data together for us.
I'm sure that was in their proposal, but I don't recall offhand. The last time I performed a survey, True North was actually one of the vendors in a previous city of mine. The timeline primarily is driven by how long it takes you to develop the survey questions. And so I liked the way Glendora had laid out their survey, but I think whatever questions we identify, we should be bringing it back to the council and making sure that the council is on board with the questions and what we framed. As soon as that's approved, it really is scheduling the professionals that make the phone calls. The Glendora survey takes approximately 17 minutes per caller, and they engage callers both on at home and by cell phone to get that statistical sampling. So if this vendor is like other vendors, you're probably looking at about a 2-month period in terms of if you had a survey to get it administered, the data analyzed, and then presented back to council.
How does that timeline align with the potential timeline for a strategic planning session? Is that going to end up pushing our strategic planning, or is it about on track?
We didn't have a definitive date. It really is based on the city council schedule, considering the fact that we've gone for a very long time in this city without having formalized processes of strategic planning. There's not a hard and fast date. So what I would propose, if this is the direction of council, to come forth at the December 13th meeting with the funding, to appropriate the funding, and then to come forth with a PSA, a professional services agreement in January, engaging a consultant. And since a consultant doesn't need to go through a competitive bid process, the preference would be, if the preference of the council would be this vendor, we could get that on a council approved in January and work towards getting something issued out in February for folks to be able to answer questions.
Great, thanks.
Is the contract available for us to look at? As you may know, surveys, qualitative research is in my wheelhouse, so I'd be very interested to see how they do their survey, what the response rates look like, all that stuff. Would we have access to see that?
Absolutely, we can put the proposal on the agenda for the 13th so that it can be reviewed. It's also a public document since they provided it to us via email, so I don't have a problem providing it to all the council.
And we worked with True North because their relationship with Glendora, or was there other reasons why we selected them as, or think we may want to select them as a vendor?
So I've looked at survey companies prior in my prior cities. True North was one of those vendors. True North was my second choice, but the experience with the first vendor was okay. But the robustness of the data was nothing like what Glendora had provided. Now, granted, the purpose of the surveys really drives the kind of formulations of the questions. In this case, it truly is how satisfied are residents with our services, and in terms of the priorities for where we put our money, where would you put that money, are different questions than if we had additional resources, what are your top priorities to put those additional resources. So it really depends, I think, to look at the expertise of the individuals, which is part of the proposal, and the robustness of the surveys they actually already performed. They attempt to get, like in Glendora, no less than 400 in their survey. They ended up with somewhere almost 550 in terms of the response.
And is the report public? Can we see the distribution of respondents, what they, where they live, what their backgrounds are, and that sort of a thing?
The report that was performed by Glendora is in the agenda packet, and the breakdown of the data are included. So you'll see the demographic. It's pretty long, so you have to get to the latter pages of the survey. You'll see the demographic breakdowns of individuals. I can't recall if they actually had a geographic breakdown. I think there is some benefit to get a geographic distribution also, although the sampling size, I don't know.
Income, renters versus homeowners, length of time in the city,
correct.
Are all things I think that would be important.
If we look at the geographic breakdown, I don't know about the statistical validity based on the sample size, if you say the Villa Verde area or the Terrebonne area. So that's something we can talk to the consultants about.
Okay, great.
I know all the other categories that you were talking about are broken down in there, but I don't know. I think Chris is right. I don't think there is one for
I'll take a look at it.
Geographic boundaries.
You know, I read most of the Glendora survey, which was interesting reading, actually, if you like that kind of thing. But I thought it was pretty good, and there was the breakdown of all these different categories. One thing I'd be interested in is akin to what Eric N. was saying about the methodology of making sure that there's a proper sample. So a lot of times, if you've got a telephone survey or something else, they'll say, we need somebody who's between 18 and 24 and has a child in the house. Are you that person? And I'll say, yes or no, whatever. But so whatever their methodology for arriving at the proper number of respondents, especially knowing that, how many of us just ignore surveys that come in an email or whatever, and even a text or phone call.
The Glendora survey had 571 respondents, and their margin of error was plus or minus about 4.1%. That's very good in terms of these kind of surveys for statistical response. And so then I would recommend, when you have a chance, to take a look at the page 327-ish in the staff report in the agenda, which gives a little more details about the methodology and the errors, and it has a little graphic based on how many respondents, what the margin of error is. And so it's not a linear relationship. And so you could think that if I go from 400 to 800 respondents, that you dramatically reduce the error rate. The reality is not by much. And so spending that kind of money to go really high in terms of the number of folks responding doesn't get you the rate of return. But ending up with about 100 gives you a plus or minus 10%, where the 571 that Glendora received, cut that to less than half of that. The initial parts of that is pretty dramatic. So if we can get at least 400, 400 would give us about a plus or minus 5% response rate, which is fairly typical for these kind of surveys. Anything greater than that, I think, is even better.
So, yes, that's what I'd like to make sure we understand when it comes to it back to us again. And it's right, they got a lot of respondents, and that's good. And I want to make sure that whatever kind of response we get, it mirrors what the actual San Dimas population demographics and all the other factors is. So if there are whatever the median, the incomes and all that, then it's not just they got 571 respondents. Those should be percentage-wise the same as the number of people in each group, whether it's by ethnicity or by income or by children in the household or that kind of thing.
I can ask the consultants to talk to that specifically, because I don't know if you're going to get, I don't know if the demographic distribution fits perfectly within, if it's 37% Latino, that we end up with 37% of 500 respondents being Latino. There's going to be a margin of error around that.
Of course.
And the assessment, if we're going to assess to material differences between, let's say, demographics or age demographics, there are statistical tools that could be utilized to determine that. And so if there's a desire to go even that much deeper in the data, I'm sure if we telegraph that to the consultant, that this may be something we want to look at later in terms of the survey. We want to ensure that we get a sample size that allows us to look at that type of distribution, that's something they can build into their survey model.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I do have a question, Chris, that I think that I support. The methodology, I think, is critically important. Whether you do randomized sampling or you do more targeted sampling, I think there's kind of, listening to council, there's a lot of interest in different representative groups in the community. I know there was discussion about surveys being done telephonically. I'm concerned that persons with disabilities may be excluded from the survey. So however it is that the consultant would look to ensure that persons with disabilities who may not be able to take a phone call will be accommodated. I would like to know how that is going to happen, and if there's any room for electronic surveying to take place as well.
Taking notes.
Thanks.
Well, it certainly sounds like there's support for this endeavor. Are there any other questions before I make a
One
motion?
other thing that you may want to consider, Chris, we can cross that bridge when we get there, is having some sort of a pot for incentive in case we do need to identify additional groups, say disabilities or others. Sometimes you can do things like offer them like a $5 gift card or something to Albertsons, or $10, and that could help improve outreach to certain groups that would be less inclined to respond to a survey. So that's just something that we may just want to have as a thought, a point of discussion with the vendor as part of the overall contract and the way that we construct the survey.
I can ask, how do we ensure that we do get the response rates on certain populations, definitely disabled populations or other demographics in the city, and ask them their expertise. What have they done? What have they seen that's effective in terms of accomplishing that?
Do you want the motion to include True North specifically?
No, unless there's an opposition, I think the direction would be we want this to come back for funding and
Wouldn't this
approval.
be just more consensus at
Do you
this
need a
point?
motion?
Because I don't see a motion.
Well, I mean, I'm not hearing any opposition, and so technically don't need any direction to go out since the contract is less than 50,000. That come forward with a budget item, and then we just take action on the budget item, and then we can execute the contract as staff. And so from there, then I think what needs to come back to council, because I think it's critically important, is what's the survey, and consultant answer the questions that are concerns, the demographics, the special populations, disabled, how do you ensure you get a proper response rate, what are we looking at in terms of the methodology, what other concerns we may have, and then how do we want to analyze the data. Can we take the raw data and dig deeper in terms of special demographics and see are there material differences between Latinos and Asians with regards to a certain type of service in the city, and let them answer those questions.
Unless I'm hearing an unhappy person or something like that, council person, I think the consensus is what we need on this, and I think we have that with all 5 of us to move forward with this. I don't see a motion necessary, so we'll wait to hear back from.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oral communications officer, members of the audience or speakers are limited to 3 minutes or as may be determined by the chair. Anyone have any, are there any more speaker announcements, cards?
No speaker cards, Mayor.
Anyone in the audience wishing to speak to the council? Seeing none, we'll move on to staff and city reports. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're heading into the holiday season, and I want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving for this weekend. Prior to the next council meeting, there are several events of note that we've heard about some of them. On Saturday, December 3rd, it's our seminal event in the city, in the downtown. It's the holiday extravaganza, which starts with a parade that is starts at 4:30 and ends in the downtown with an amazing show of the tree lighting and snow and wonderful lighting. It's just an absolute incredible event, so I encourage all to attend. The Chamber highlighted an event earlier in that week, November 30th, which is their Chamber Holiday Mixer, which would be at 5 o'clock. And then the following week, there's a chamber event on the 7th of December, which is their mixer at Baby Bros Pizza at 5 p.m., which is open to the public. And then there's a number of events that are occurring on Thursday at 8 o'clock. Inland Valley Humane Society is celebrating the opening of their one of their additional facilities at their location, the retirement of board member from Bonita Unified School District, Chuck Coyne, which starts at 5 p.m. here in the Plummer Building on our campus, and then a Cal Cities event that's occurring across town at 6 p.m. in close to downtown Los Angeles. And those are events that are occurring prior to the next council meeting. You'll notice in the audience, I think she's still here. Yeah, you too, Margie. Lieutenant Elizabeth Sachs is standing in for Ash. I wanted to point out and introduce you to her if you haven't met her in person. She's a wonderful asset that we have here at the local station, and it's great to have some consistent present no matter what happens, come rain or shine. It's just not the post office that will deliver. Our sheriff's office does also. The last item, as we mentioned prior, if we could not get a Saturday date for the boards and commissions discussion, I would bring it up at the council meeting. We have been unable to get all 5 confirmed on a date, and I'd like to ask if you have your calendars available to try to determine a date that works for all of you to be able to bring that item forth. We had last proposed dates in the January, February, March timeframe. My recommendation is we look at a date in the new year, given that the holiday seasons, most weekends are pretty challenging for folks. So is there a proposal for a meeting in January?
I'd propose January 21st. It's a Saturday. It's the 3rd Saturday in January.
If I realize that this is a significant ask since we've been putting this off for quite some time, but I've got a really extremely important process at work that will be taking place at the end of January, and my Saturdays will be taken burying my face in books. So if we could maybe do the beginning of February, that'd be fantastic for me.
February 4th or 11th?
Either one of those seem open for me.
Does February 4th or 11th work for all the council?
I'm available on the 4th. It's a little further out than I would like it to be, but I do understand Eric's situation. So February 4th would be fine with me.
Fine with me.
It works for me, as does an earlier Saturday in January, just to say, like the 14th. I'm not sure, Eric, if you're ramping up at that point for that.
I'm ramping up right now.
Got it. Okay.
And quite honestly, I will be out of town on the 14th.
No worries. So
I'm hearing the 4th.
February the 4th?
Okay.
That works for me.
That works for you?
Wow.
8 o'clock in the morning in the council chambers?
We can
we're talking
work
about
on
9.
location, given kind of the
You're thinking about
the
we're gonna
depth of
go
discussions.
off
We may be able
campus,
to
or-
do it off-site.
We just send a calendar invite from the events thing you guys have been doing, which is fantastic.
Thank you. I had mentioned as we put the new calendar together, I'm sure we'll miss something. We haven't yet, so we'll make sure we keep that consistent. So I'll work with the city clerk's office to
Yeah,
schedule this.
if you're looking for a place to do it other than here, that's totally fine, but I would be also fine with the conference room.
Yeah.
So,
That is a public meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
yeah.
Emmett's house with lots of food, recyclable food.
I didn't say that.
And then we're going to audit him afterwards.
And we're going to audit his trash.
So thank you very much. We'll get that
So
scheduled.
are we going to set a time though? Because we want to make sure that this is,
We can set 8 a.m. on Saturday, February 4th.
Okay,
With a
and-
location to be determined.
and is that going to be set for a time that's a time definitive, an ending time, or are we just going to leave a question mark?
The request from the council the last time was to set out maybe time milestones to ensure that we make progress through the documents.
Yes.
So we have the board and commission handbook, which there's not going to be a phenomenal amount of changes being proposed, but there are some very fundamental pieces of it that may have very robust conversation. And then the council's handbook, which will be the first time you would have the entire handbook. And although there are a lot of similarities to what was in the board and commission handbook, we don't know how that conversation would go with that document. And then the last one, we'll schedule that one for a regular council meeting, which is the recognition policy, so that doesn't delay the conversation on the other two big documents. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. City Attorney?
No report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the council want to report on any meetings attended at the expense of the local agency? City council requests for future items, comments, and updates. Eric McConnell?
Only comment I have is happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I know we have a lot to be grateful for, especially living here in this wonderful city of ours. And so I wish everybody a safe holiday, and I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
Thank you. Eric Weber?
Aside from Happy Thanksgiving, which I do wish everybody, I just hope everybody had a great Veterans Day weekend as well. Kind of back-to-back long weekends, so it's a nice time with the holidays rolling around, but I wanted to acknowledge that as well.
John?
First thing I'd like is that to talk about was a memo we got from Jeff, our city attorney, and his colleague Brian. And I like the way it started. It said, although it is technical and wonky, you might enjoy reviewing the attached memo about a bunch of housing stuff, and it went on for page after page. But it was really, actually, it was had a lot of important information about laws that take effect January 1st, or in some cases a little later in the year, dealing with housing, and more things that the state is making us do or not letting us do, one or the other. And I thought that a short, not a long, but a short session, maybe an hour and a half study session, might be in order for Jeff and our planning staff and everybody else, the rest of the staff, to give clarity to some of the things that are really going to affect San Dimas. We don't have to go over every single law and every single point, but there's a bunch of them. One comes to mind is allowing housing in commercial zones, just carte blanche, but there are things the city can do, and the city should be doing things like that unless they want to just allow carte blanche housing development in commercial zones and high density. So I'd just like to have a study session at staff's convenience.
I could support that, but I would also like to add the Planning Commission to that study session.
Sorry, I had mentioned that in my email to Chris. Yeah, the Planning Commission should be involved.
I have no problem with, with and not but an hour and a half or whatever it takes to get through it, but I do want to involve both council and...
We'll look at the beginning of next year, and I'll work with the city attorney, because I think the information and how he laid it out would be the most effective, not just for the commissions and the council, but I think for other staff that are not specifically in the housing area or planning area. So I think it'd be beneficial.
Now, would this be the next, bringing up at the next meeting to set a date to do this, or is this something that we could just go forward and plan?
We would be agendizing this obviously for the December 13th to give direction to do that, but I do see value in it and doing that. And so this is really the council's call how to frame it. And so we can discuss it on the 17th. And my preference would be in the discussion that we frame it around the city attorney making the presentation on the housing laws.
I would propose to the council that I support what Councilman Ebner wants to do, and I support what the mayor wants to do. I would actually take it a step further, though. We talked about having a training day for our commissions and our boards, etc. I think this topic is important enough, perhaps, to invite all of the commissions to hear about this, because I think it impacts almost every single area of the city, potentially. So I would actually be more entertained. I would hope maybe we would look at inviting all of the commissions to attend this, and perhaps we could provide some snacks and what have you, and have a good day of this, because I think it is critical as they discuss their duties respectively, whether it's parks or whether it's public safety, that this can impact them as they consider items for us.
Is there any difficulty with that, Jeff?
There's no difficulty, no. That's what the council would like.
Can we still do that first meeting in January before the regular city council meeting? Or Ryan, were you thinking of a separate day to do that?
I'm good either way. I mean,
Okay.
I think logistically, if we invite them to a study session, then that's probably like a study session in the Plummer building, I
Yeah,
would guess.
that's what I would
fine.
think. I would
Senior
think it would
center.
be.
I just don't want
difficult
to
here.
wait a long time, and since some of the provisions go into effect January 1st, and this study session will be afterward, there are some points in there that action should be at least starting right now to make sure we've got things in place. So, I'm not sure, maybe planning would be able to give us an update on, in consultation with you, Jeff, on what kinds of things are possible and that we could do, because there's a number of things that are, that we shouldn't wait until something is right in our face.
A lot of the things that are required, planning will have to start doing even before we have a study session, because it's
Okay.
just legally required.
Right.
But we can update you on those in the study session in January, and in addition to updating you on those, get some direction on options for what we can do on things that are not legally required, but things that we can do strategically.
Perfect. That's perfect. Thank you very much.
If I may, so that we don't have conflicts in terms of the schedule, is the presumption that we want all the council and all the commissioners, or all the council and those commissioners that desire to be a part of the conversation? So if we do a training day, we would be selecting a day and inviting all the commissions to attend that, and it would be specifically just as a training study session. But if we do it if we're going to agendize it as a study session of the council, then the presumption for me would be all the council members need to be available for whatever date we pick, and then the commissioners become those who are invited to attend, instead of us trying to find a date that 30 individuals can actually meet at the same time. So
Yeah.
what would be the preference of the
I
council?
think the council's got to do it.
The council's got to do it.
Extend the invitation.
The planning commission is, I think, the primary commission that needs to be there, but I agree with Ryan, if just for people knowing what's going on and how it affects them.
Yeah, just extend the invitation, but
the
let's
invitation.
try to make sure that the planning commission realizes how important it is. Okay, Margie?
Anyway.
And is there opposition to having it before a council meeting, or do you want a separate date?
Let's do before a council meeting. We've had.
Perfect. So I'll work, given that when all the council is saying we're all on board with it, no need to agendize it just to get a vote to say, schedule it.
In scheduling that many folks that may be, let's look at 5 o'clock or 4:30 or something like that. Something a little longer than 5:30, because we'll be sitting around waiting and getting started and stuff.
And just want to make sure that all the council members are also able to make it at that time.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can take some time off, that's fine.
I'll know closer, I'll know in a couple weeks.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll work with the Community Development Department and the city attorney to schedule that at one of the meetings in January based on what we're looking at in terms of workload.
Thanks, John, for bringing that forward.
You're certainly welcome. And the only other thing is I do want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and we all express our gratitude for our blessings, and at the same time realizing and understanding that there are many who are struggling at this time in our country and around the world. So we have a lot to give thanks for.
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to report that the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District will be resuming in-person meetings probably in February at the disbanding of the emergency order from the governor. So for those that are chomping at the bit to get involved with mosquitoes and join me at 7 a.m. on a second Friday of the month, hit me up. I'll give you the information, or visit the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control District website, and they'll be happy to share some information with you. I will tell you they're working on some pretty cool things, some microwave technology to zap some of these mosquitoes. It's a whole very fascinating process. So you can watch our last meeting. They stream if you really want to get in the weeds on it, but bottom line is tip toss your water, put on mosquito repellent, and wear long sleeves if you need to. I'd like to say thank you to the San Dimas Heroes Organization. The Veterans Day ceremony in town was amazing. As always, thank you to Gary Anderley, Penny Stevens, and all of the persons that came there. Some of the members of the council were there, and thank you for attending. Assembly member Chris Holden was in attendance as well. So it was really well turned out by the community, as it always is, and our city clerk was there. And thank you for being there with us as well that day. The elections happened. Voter turnout was pretty good this go-around. So thank you to everybody that got out there. As always, elections matter. It is important that you pay attention, whether it's locally or abroad. I'd like to congratulate everyone that ran in our school board race. It doesn't matter whether you won or whether you did not. The bottom line is it does take courage to run. And I think everyone gave it their all this go. And I think that everybody that ran had something valuable to offer the community and the district. I look forward to working with those members of the school board for the community in the future, and continuing the past partnership that has existed between the Bonita Unified School District and the city of San Dimas. To that extent, it looks like we are going to have a new sheriff on December 5th. So congratulations to Sheriff-elect Robert Luna on that, and look forward to working with him and the Sheriff's Department for our community here. Speaking of which, Black Friday is coming up, and so as you know, in San Dimas, we always tend to have extra patrols in our shopping centers, and uniquely, we tend to have our mounted posse out in Target parking lot and all of that stuff. So if you're new to the community or you haven't seen that before, don't fret. That is something that is traditional here in town. So our mounted posse, our volunteers, all are awesome people, very approachable, very involved in the community. So don't forget to say hi or take a photo with one of the horses. And also don't forget to put your belongings safely out of sight and lock your vehicles. It seems every year people just get a little comfortable. And while it is a good, quaint, safe community that we do have, there are opportunistic people, and just be a little bit more vigilant. Lastly, but not least, I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to serve here in my hometown. I'm very blessed to have my family, my wife, my parents here in town. I cherish the opportunity to serve the public here. And so many of you, just since my first term to now, have become friends and family. And so I'm very grateful for the staff. Thank you so much, Chris, Deborah, all of you, Jeff, Brad, all you guys. Very grateful for everything you guys do for us here. Without you guys, our city quite literally would be in disrepair in all kinds of different ways. Some of you, we see it more frequently than others, but no, even our computer guy over here, everything is doing what it does because of all the hard work you do. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much, and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Most importantly, everyone have a great Thanksgiving and enjoy your time with your families. There's just two things. Ryan and John alluded to the fact of the Veterans Day ceremony. It was a great job. They do a great job every year. The park's completely full. One of the things I want to make comment, though, is that our staff went out the week prior, and even amongst the many raindrops that came down the first day or two of that week, they got some new plants planted. They cleaned it up, and that looked really good. And the Hero staff was out actually scrubbing the granite, and they take great pride in getting it ready for the people that this memorializes and commemorates. And yes, once again, Gary Enderle and his crew did a fabulous job, and thank them for representing the city of San Dimas, and we representing them. They do this much on their own time, and without them, we probably wouldn't have had a memorial, or at least a memorial that size. But thank you. We kind of alluded to this a little earlier about holiday parking. I have some concerns, and I'm going to be asking that the Public Safety Commission look at the holiday parking, and that's in the time frame. I had several parents call me and say, why would you have a moratorium on a holiday for the holiday week for Thanksgiving, when in fact our families, our kids come home from school on the Friday prior to Thanksgiving. So then they have a parking problem, and we weren't set up for that. We started the moratorium on Monday morning, and we had a problem with kids coming in on Friday evening from San Diego State and other places. So I would like the Public Safety Commission, when they look at the overnight parking, I'd like them to take a look at that and see if there's a way that we can, include that as a problem. And that's like any holiday, but we know that Thanksgiving is coming on a Thursday every year from now until somebody changes it. So maybe it's something we could take a look at.
Mayor, on that point, I'm just wondering, is it possible for us to retroactively implement the moratorium and waive any fees incurred since last Friday?
Let me look into that, but I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how many people got tickets over this last weekend. I have no idea. Maybe none. If we're lucky, none. But it's just a concern of some parents who had children coming in, their kids coming in for Thanksgiving from local colleges and stuff like that. And so that's something maybe we could just look at. And thank you for taking a look at that. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going into closed session. At this time, we are going to go into closed session to discuss 3 matters. 2 matters of conference with the legal counsel, existing litigation between the City of San Dimas versus the Metro Gold Line Foothill Extension Construction Authority. The 3rd matter is a conference with real property negotiators. Okay, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Conference with legal counsel, existing litigation. Conference with real property negotiators. I understand.
Mr. Mayor, I'll save it, to do a little consolidation here myself, and I believe my colleague, Councilman Ebner, will be recusing ourselves due to real property conflicts, and I would request that the items were taken out of order, that item C be considered first. I don't know if my colleague would support that.
Yes, you are right. I'll be recusing myself from those same 2 items. And yes, I would like that first one taken up that we can participate in.
That's a great idea, but I object.
Misery loves company, I think.
Yeah. Let me substitute motion.
Item C will be taken first, and the closed session will reside in 10 minutes in the conference room. Good night. Have a great Thanksgiving.